Good afternoon and welcome. There's no place like your home. I'm Lisa, and today is a beautiful sunny Sunday here, and I'm just loving all of the light, and it's going to be about 60 degrees. So I want to take advantage of that with some other projects and things I have to do. But one of the viewers asked me for my recipe, and I know this may look pretty basic. I made this board. It's just a piece of stick-on uh, uh, chalk paper, and then I just mitered a frame. But anyway, I want to share this recipe with you, and hope that you will too enjoy this very much, as I have for at least the past 40 years. Now, like any cook, a food artist, you're going to make variations because you just will. But I'll give you the basic recipe, and hopefully this is a help. And I'm not completely fully tech savvy yet with, dropping links and having flashing signs on the screen and everything. So I'm still an old school pen and paper kind of gal, and I hope, you'll get where I'm coming from. So I don't want to insult anybody by doing this. It's just, this is what works for me. So without further ado, let's start with that quiche recipe. Now, I always stick to the proportions of 4 eggs, and you can use 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, or I do use half and half at this point because cream is very expensive. And for the bulk that I'm doing in making these, it's just astronomical. I couldn't charge what I need to charge in order to justify that. So I go with the half and half, and it's just as effective. It calls for 3/4 teaspoon of salt. So, just you want to get a little bit of salt into that mix. And then this is just one of, it's the main ingredient really that really, as I said, gives quiche its quiche flavor, and it's nutmeg. And I use about an eighth teaspoon. Sometimes I'll just take a little bit out and test the cream, just to see if that's what I like or not, or maybe just a little bit more. But you do want to be careful with nutmeg, as I've learned. Never knew this. Too much can actually be kind of dangerous. So just make sure that you're keeping that proportion of nutmeg, an eighth teaspoon, and maybe even a little shake. It depends, but that would be more than enough. Now, the original recipe used less cheese. I like more cheese in mine. I use one of the, either like a 8-ounce bag of shredded cheese, or I'll buy a block and shred it myself. It just depends on the time I have and how much more work I want to give to myself, and just feeling like I really put this together. I prefer extra sharp white cheddar. And again, you can use mild cheddar, medium cheddar, the orange cheddar. But again, that's what I like, is that extra sharp white cheddar. And I'll even add some orange into it. But I have found that the consistency of good 2 full cups of cheese with the half and half gives it that very nice, rich texture that the cream would. So, I just kind of switch that up with the cheese and the half and half filling the bill. You're going to blend your eggs, your half and half, your salt, and your nutmeg. So you want to get that whipped up. And today I'm not in the kitchen, so I've really cleaned up and put everything away, but I still hope that the board and the audio will help you with that. But getting the recipe together. But you're just going to mix those, whip them up, get that all mixed in together, and then add your cheese, fold that in either with a spatula or a spoon, just to have, that all together. Now, something else, because I'm going to tell you what I do for my crust. it calls for the 4 eggs, but if you want that nice gloss on your crust, you're going to have to use an egg. So I would say 5 eggs is not going to hurt, or even use a little bit of the one of the 4 eggs, separate it just in a cup, on the side for just a minute, get the yolk and the clear separated just for a minute, whip up the yolk a little bit, and then either brush on or however you would feel you wanted to apply that on your crust, even your fingertips. I'm a stickler for keeping my hands clean, so I'm okay with doing that, getting that on there, and then throw it into your mix. So 4 or 5 eggs won't hurt the recipe. It's just, more protein, and it'll still come out very nicely. Now my crust, I always made a crust with Crisco. At times when I was in a real pinch, I've used the pre-packaged ones, but I'll tell you, if you look on those packages at a lot of the food, there's all kinds of stuff in there, and you can't even pronounce it and don't even know what it is. If you can, and even make it ahead, the dough I know will stay at least a couple of weeks in your refrigerator. Make a couple little batches or a big batch and cut it up or whatever, but I just think this would be so much better for you. It's 1 1/4 cups of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, so you got some more salt, and then 1 stick of butter. Okay, so that is, I think, considered to be a 1/2 cup. Now, I've always kept my butter frozen or refrigerated. I know some people keep theirs out, but if you're going to make a good crust, get that stick of butter in the refrigerator. Just, keep it refrigerated before you use it. And then what I did for my last crust is I'm cutting the butter in half and half. So I've got 4 sticks of 1 stick of butter. And then I cubed it, and then I actually put it back in the refrigerator while I was preparing, my quiche part. So you do want to do your crust first. I'm sorry for that, not to clarify that. You want to make your crust, and then you're going to refrigerate it. The colder but workable that you can have your crust be is really the best, your dough. You don't want it warm and room temperature and soften, but you've got to have some flexibility with it. So don't let it get too warm, but it doesn't have to be, pulled right out of the refrigerator. Maybe to sit out for 30 minutes. That's plenty of time. So you've got your flour, your salt, and your butter. And then the key ingredient for getting this all together is 3 to 4 tablespoons of ice water. So yesterday I just poured a little bit of water in a cup, threw it in the freezer till it was nice and cold. You want it that cold, not frozen, but nice and cold. And then you're going to add that water 1 tablespoon at a time, and just work your dough. You can use a mixer. I do have a pastry tool. Let me just show you a couple things here too. So as I said, today's kind of, I'm getting down into my basement, and was kind of really, I'm psyched about that, getting that done. So you're going to, get your mixer, and then your mixer bowl, and you've got your flour, your salt, and your butter, and then you're going to put a tablespoon of water in and just really, work that. This is a great tool to have, this pastry cutter or pastry worker, I'm not sure. Anyway, and you're just going to work it and work it and work it till you get a nice consistency, and then roll it in a ball. And I use waxed paper and a plastic bag, and get that back refrigerated again for a bit until I'm ready to put my quiche ingredients together. So I do want to show you, this is the flour I discovered. I can't seem to find a bigger bag of it, but this white lily flour, this is, I think, a little over $2, and I got it at Walmart. And this flour is just, I don't know how to describe flowers. It's just exquisite. It's soft, it's easy to work with. It's a very good flour, white lily. So keep that in mind. But, you know, again, as always, you've got to do what works for you. You know, you don't want to spend a lot of money on things. That's the purpose of this channel, to show you, give you ideas how to think outside the box, not spend so much money on things. You know, you can do it. You can do it. So there you have your crust. You know, you want to get that done ahead a little bit. And your ingredients for your quiche, your base for your quiche. And let's say you've got it all together. You've rolled your crust out. You've got your pie pan. You know, you're ready to go on this. But before you do that, I'm sorry, I haven't been in a teaching mode in a long time, so pulling this out of the hat as well. First thing you'll want to do, once really you're ready to go, get your oven preheated at 425. Now that's for this recipe. There are other recipes. You can blind bake the crust. That means like half bake it before you put your ingredients in. There are different ways, but this recipe, I'm saying 425 for 15 minutes. And what that's going to do, that's going to take care of your crust first off. It's, you know, it will get it a little more baked and hot, because you don't need to bake your whole quiche at that temperature. After your 15-minute time frame, drop your oven down to 325, and you're going to finish your quiche for 35 minutes. So you're looking at 50 minutes total, give or take. And I do just have to say, every oven is different. Sometimes I've had to, you know, get it in there for 40 minutes. But, you know, you want to just make sure you're watching your food. Get your timer on and check out, you know, the progress of your quiche. And I will say this too, this is the basic recipe. I add anywhere between a smaller tomato, a half or a whole tomato. It depends on how big it is. I use freshly bagged spinach, and it's I think it's about $2 at Walmart, and it's still got the stems on it. It's full leaf spinach. And then I just cut the stems off and then chop that up. You can also use frozen spinach, but you'll want to get it cooked and then make sure you really drain that. You know, put it in an old clean dish towel or whatever, and just squeeze all of the moisture out. You don't want any water. Sometimes tomatoes can be a little wonky if they're too wet, so I try to pat those down. So I like a tomato, spinach, and then you can add bacon bits. You can cook bacon fresh and put it in there. I'm trying something new right now, just placing the bacon on the top, just more as a presentation, as opposed to, you know, any effect that would have on the cooking. And there are other recipes. You can use different cheeses. You can use Swiss cheese. I would say you're going to probably want to stick to a heavier, drier cheese, cheddar, Swiss cheese. Any softer cheese probably is not going to do so well. I think it would just be a little too gooey. I've never experimented, but I think you want to stick to a nice hard cheese. So I hope this helps you. I sincerely mean that. I've been making this for, as I said, at least 40 years. So, you know, get your oven at 425, bake the whole thing for 15 minutes, drop that temperature down for another 35 minutes to 325. 4 or 5 eggs, depends. 2 cups of half and half is what I use, and again, it's due to the cost. 3/4 teaspoon of salt, easy on that nutmeg at an 1/8 teaspoon, and then I have 8 ounces of cheese, 2 cups of cheese is what I like. I like to feed that to my family, getting all that extra protein in there with the eggs. And your crust is 1 1/4 cups of flour, and this is just one crust, just for you know, your base of your pie. 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 stick of butter. Get that all nice and cubed up. Have it cold, and that 3 to 4 tablespoons of ice water. And yeah, it's a little work. You're going to be using some elbow grease there, but I'm telling you, it's well worth it. And roll it out. If you have troubles with pastries on your board, you know, make sure you have it floured, and then even put a piece of wax paper over the pastry dough, and then you can roll it that way, and that just helps with the traction and the dough not getting all stuck to your rolling pin. So I do hope this helps. I want to show you my tart recipe as well. Very simple. These are all very simple meals. This is a complete meal with all that protein in there, and you're getting some milk and even some vegetables as well. So I hope this helps you. Always good to see you. And actually, before I go, I've not done this because I always have to make too much. You could even half any of this, you know, to make a smaller portion for yourself if it's just yourself, or you don't want to make a big one. So anyway, you would just keep your crust that way. That way you're going to have 2 crusts available if you're making a smaller quiche portion. So, all right. Well, I'll see you soon. I'm actually psyched. I'm off to Home Depot. I'm getting my paint, and I'm going to start that one corner of the basement that I have been actually talking about for about 7 years. So I'll see you soon. Thanks for your time. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and we'll be back in touch. And is that stopping? And I'm going to go this way, and happy baking today. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend.